Morning, guys. Welcome to the newspaper analysis for today's newspaper, The Hindu. That is 3rd March. Right, we'll learn about all of the aspects that are given in the newspaper. I don't think there are many aspects. There are only few aspects that are very important for UPSC, and I'll be discussing on those aspects. And particularly, I'll be discussing those which are related to prelims and those which are related to mains. Okay. So let us start without any delay. West Asia war escalates, spikes oil and strands flies. Basically, all the ongoing war that has been happening for the previous 3 days has led to the consequences, as I've discussed in the previous classes as well, that whenever there's a disturbance in the West Asia, it leads to reduction in remittances and also increase in the oil prices. So as I've said, there's an increase in oil spike, increase in oil prices, and stranding of flies. Stranding of flies means all the people that actually have to go to the West Asian nations are stuck in India or some other place, right? Due to which what happens? The remittances decreases. This is one of the consequence, and the other consequence is the rise in oil prices. What happens when there is a rise in oil price? Whenever there's a rise in oil price, the production cost also increases, because India imports nearly 60 to 80%. 60 to 80% of the imports from West Asian nations. Because of which, when there's an increase in oil prices, then there's an increase in the production cost, which leads to an inflation from the supply side shock, which leads to overall depreciation and reduction in FDIs and FPIs. So yeah, that has been happening in West Asia. In this article, I think it is best for us to understand what West Asia is rather than understanding what oil spikes and standing of flies is. We can actually use this in international relations. International relations where whenever there's a disturbance in the West Asia, it has larger consequences such as oil price hikes and reduction in remittances. But let's see what are the West Asian nations. I have the globe here. As you can see, in UPSC, I think UPSC might ask questions like which of the following are the West Asian nations. It might give you options like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Georgia. Then you need to understand that there are certain countries that do not come under the West Asian nations. Those are Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, right? And there's a central 5, okay? Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan. All of these are central 5. Central 5 meaning they are Central Asian countries. So keep those in mind, because UPSC might trick you by asking one of these options as one of these countries as an option in the exam and ask you to tell whether they are under West Asia or not. Okay. Coming to the other aspects, let's see what are the West Asian nations. There is Iran. This is the reason why Iran is very important, because it has major control over the Persian Gulf, which again connects to the Arabian Sea, which is where India gets its oil supports from. That is the reason Iran also struck UAE. If you actually see, there were bombings in Dubai also. The reason there were bombings in Dubai, it's not because of the hostility that Iran has with UAE, but it wanted to control the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, right? All of these aspects it wanted to control, and in order to control, it actually tried to weaken UAE. Okay, see, you can see that there is UAE, this part of West Asia, Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Lebanon, Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Oman, right? All of these, Turkey, Azerbaijan, all of these are part of West Asian nations. If you can see here, the Israel is here, whereas Iran is here. You might also get a question that Israel's border is Iran in UPSC, because it is clearly evident that Iran and Israel do not have good ties. And many people think that the reason they do not have a good tie is because of they are bordering each other. But you can see that Israel does not border Iran. You need to keep that in mind. It does not border Iran or Iraq. Right? Israel is here. It borders Jordan. Lebanon, and then there is Mediterranean Sea. So all of these aspects, it's bordering. So keep that in mind. This is important for prelims. So what are the key aspects that you need to keep in mind? There are 5 Central Asian nations. Central Asian nations including Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. These are the 5 Central Asian nations which are not part of West Asia. And the other aspect that you need to remember is that Israel does not border Iran or Iraq. These are the things that you need to keep in mind. Those are all the important aspects that come from that particular article. Right. Moving on. India, Canada ink uranium deals as Carney meets Modi. Basically, India and Canada have made a deal of import of uranium from Canada, that is for worth of $1.9 billion. $1.9 billion, right? If you actually see the major countries who have uranium, first comes Australia with more than 30% of uranium reserves. Then comes Kazakhstan, which is having around 14% of the uranium reserves. And then comes Canada with 8 to 9% of uranium reserves. What about Iran? Iran is in 10th place. Iran is in 10th place. While Australia is the largest, while Australia has the largest uranium reserves, Kazakhstan is the largest producer of uranium. Okay, you need to keep this in mind because all of these facts are very important for prelims, because Iran has nuclear enrichment programs and India is moving towards nuclear power generation. So you need to keep all of these in mind. Australia has the highest amount of reserves of 30%. Kazakhstan comes next, which is the largest producer of uranium. Then comes Canada, 8 to 9%, and Iran is in the 10th place. The reason Iran is actually targeted is because of the enrichment process. Enrichment process is nothing but, I'll explain it simply. It's a complicated process. I just want to explain the enrichment process as simple as possible. Every uranium ore is there, right? After you extract uranium from the ore, you'll have a uranium compound. In its there is U-238, which is 99.8% of U-238, and U-235, which is 0.2%. 99.2% and 0.8%. So each and every uranium that is extracted has 99% of uranium, that is uranium-238, which is fertile in nature. Fertile in nature means it is not unstable and it's not useful for fission as it is. Okay, and U-235 is 0.8%. Right? It is very fissile. Fissile meaning it is very unstable. Fissile meaning it is very unstable. Whenever you hit it with a neutron, it will split and it will generate much energy, which is why it is used for nuclear fusion. Right. So enrichment process is nothing but extracting the uranium-235 from the ore, and the amount of enrichment happens, and the enrichment taking place in Iran. And whenever there is high enrichment, there is high chances of making it into a nuclear missile. For nuclear generation, usually the enrichment required is 3 to 5%, whereas if you go beyond 10 or 12%, then the enrichment is used for nuclear programming. That is why Iran is being targeted more, because instead of limiting the enrichment to 3 to 5%, it is increasing the enrichment to 60%, which is usually for nuclear missiles. Even that is the reason why Israel is scared, because some of the leaders of Iran have openly declared destruction of Israel, and with Iran increasing its enrichment process, Israel is actually scared that it might actually bomb Israel. So that is the reason Iran is more targeted. And what about U-38? U-238 is very fertile in nature. So instead of using it as a fissile material, what they'll do is they'll add a neutron. When the neutron is added, it will become U-239, and this U-239 will be kept for 2-3 days for beta decay. And when there is beta decay, it gradually forms into plutonium-238, which is very fissile in nature. This is how the uranium-238 or the uranium-235 is used. And coming to the thorium that India has large reserves of thorium. This thorium again is very, fertile in nature. When it is fertile in nature, you will add the neutron, and whenever you add neutron, you keep it for decay. And when the thorium added neutron is kept for decay, it leads to the formation of uranium-233, which is fissile again. So this is what I want to actually tell. Now, what I want to focus on is that as India is moving towards uranium deals and focusing more on nuclear energy, our dependency on uranium imports can be more than oil imports. As we've recently seen that the energy demand in India has first time crossed 51% for non-renewable energy and 49% for fossil fuel energy. So this clearly shows that the energy dependence on fossil fuels is decreasing and the non-renewable energy is increasing. Similarly, nuclear energy is a clean energy. It is not a renewable energy. It's not a renewable energy, but it is a clean energy. Okay, you need to keep that in mind. So whenever we are focusing more on clean or renewable energy, our dependence increases on that. So as nuclear energy ensures more production of power, we can actually be dependent on imports for a certain period. So our plan should be we should become independent or self-reliant of uranium as soon as possible. Otherwise, countries such as Australia, Kazakhstan, and Canada might be able to control our policies and ensure that our policies are aligned with their policies. So that is what I wanted to tell you. So India and Canada ink uranium deal as Carney meets Modi. It is not a mains aspect. In mains aspect, you can only use it for India-Canada relations. Otherwise, there's not much use of it. Other than that, you can use it for prelims, where I've explained how thorium can be extracted, how uranium-238 can be used, and how uranium-235 is used. Okay, you can keep all of these in mind, and also which countries are uranium rich and which countries are the largest producers. Australia has highest uranium reserves, Kazakhstan in the second place, Canada in the third place, while Kazakhstan is the largest producer of uranium, and Iran is in the 10th place, which is very low. So keep that in mind, because the UPSC can use any method to trick you. Yeah, it will use your common sense. It will try to use your common sense to trick you. So be aware of that. Russian oil imports at 44 months low in Jan as West Asian countries' share rises. Basically, the article is saying that the Russian oil imports are at the lowest low. Yeah, Russian oil imports are at the lowest, and the West Asian countries' share is rising. This is again geopolitical in nature. We think that oil's dependence is only about the disturbances, but it is more than the disturbances. It is all about how oil can be used as a geopolitical measure to control actions. Okay, I'll show you. Basically, India needs oil. India needs oil because it is fossil fuel dependent currently. It is moving towards renewable energy, but then again, it's still fossil fuel dependent majorly. right? When it is fossil fuel dependent, majority of its majority of its imports are based on fossil fuel, right? And the major sources of fossil fuel are West Asia and Russia. We have a close ally. We are close allies with Russia. So Russia sells oil at cheap for us. So when it comes to Russia, we have low inflation, and then again, less dependence, less dependence on the West Asia, and also there is low chances of scarcity, because of which there will be low inflation. Okay, this is the reason we are importing oil from Russia, because they are cheap in nature, and it ensures that there is low inflation in India, and it ensures that the scarcity is less in India. Okay, that is the reason we are depending on Russia. Coming to West Asia, West Asia is the highest oil importer, but the main drawback is the Western disturbances, because the West Asian nations are very fragile in nature. Whenever they are fragile in nature, the geopolitical stability in the West Asia is very unstable. Okay, whenever there is instability, as you've seen that whenever there is an, for example, in the current situation when there is a war in Iraq going on, what happened? The oil price started to hike. Whenever the oil price started to hike, who will it affect? The person that is dependent on the oil, that is India. So that is why West Asia, despite having high oil exports, is very fragile in nature. That is why Western disturbances will directly impact India. Now, where does USA come in this? USA's main goal is one, reduce Chinese influence in the Indo-Pacific, and two, keep Russia away from the energy security infrastructure, meaning that Russia's major imports or major money comes from the exports of oil and gas. So USA's main motto is to keep Russia away from the energy market as long as possible, because if Russia exports more oil and more gas, then majority of the countries will be dependent on Russia. So then again, Russia would be able to influence all of the countries. USA does not want that, because USA's long-standing Cold War with Russia. So that is the reason USA does not want to increase Chinese influence, also Russia's influence, and the only ally that China and Russia together have is India. I mean, India does not have a good tie with China, but India has a good tie with Russia, and Russia in turn has a good tie with China. So China would be able to control India through Russia. So that is what USA's main concern is. So what is India doing? What is USA doing? USA's main way to control is through sanctions. USA imposes sanctions to ensure that a country does not violate its principles or violate actions or do commit actions that are against the understanding or values of USA. Okay, so whenever the values of USA are being tampered, then USA starts imposing sanctions. So that is why whenever India starts to import oil from Russia, USA starts to impose sanctions on India. So USA has directly correlated the amount of sanctions to the import of oil. If you actually import more oil from Russia, more sanctions from USA. If you actually import less oil from Russia, less sanctions from USA. That way, India is compelled to reduce the Russian imports and increase dependence on West Asia, because USA has allies with West Asia. See, you can see how strategic this is. USA is controlling West Asia is controlling India, Russia is controlling India, China is controlling India through Russia. At the end of the day, the only person that is being pressured is India. So that is why India is trying to maintain strategic importance. That is why India is actually taking imports from the West Asia and also taking imports from the Russia, so that it is neutral to all of the blocks rather than supporting a major block. If you support a major block, whenever you need any help, then the other block will not help. Meaning, if you stop taking imports from Russia and suddenly USA stops supporting India, then who will support India? No one will support India. So that is why India is trying to maintain diplomatic ties with Russia as well as USA by reducing the imports from USA and appeasing Russia. Appeasing USA. So at the end of the day, India is in a very tight situation, especially when it comes to geopolitical tensions. India is in a very tight situation, but I think India is handling it very well, because you can see how tight the situation is for India, right? So that is what I wanted to say, that Russian imports at 44-month low in Jan as West Asian countries share rises, because USA wanted that. USA wanted that, and USA got that. Okay, so you can use it in GS2. GS2 for what do you call? GS2 for international relations. International relations, how there is geopolitical control. You can use it in mains. I don't think there is much you need to know about this other than the percentages for GS2 mains. Okay, and the very less information that is given. See, you can see that Hyderabad bears brunt of West Asia conflict as key transit routes shut. As I told you, that many people get stuck in the other countries as West Asian disputes increase. Right. This is how remittances also decrease. That is why India needs to stop being remittance dependent. You can also use this in the editorial that I told about Kerala in the recent newspaper analysis. I told about Kerala, how Kerala is remittance dependent. You can actually use how West Asian majority of the Keralites are present in the West Asia, like Qatar and UAE, all of these areas where the Keralites are present. Whenever there's a disturbance in the West Asia, all of these get stranded, and the remittances stop, and Kerala's GDP also decreases. So yeah, that is why you you should not be dependent on the remittances more. Lot of politics, less of polity, right? Israel, the US, and the war to build a unipolar West Asia. It's only talking about how there's a unipolar West Asia being created, how Israel and US are creating a unipolar West Asia because they want to meet their ends. Meaning that whenever, as I'm talking about, USA has some values and principles, and whenever those values and principles are being violated, then it takes some measures. Similarly, it is saying that Israel and USA and the war to build a unipolar West Asia, meaning that West Asian countries where everyone is in line with USA's and Israel's principles, because Israel and USA are very close allies. So whenever anything is hurting both of their values or principles, then they attack Iran or any other West Asian nation and create a unipolar West Asia. That is what it is saying. Nothing much to think here. UD reforms, this is also political in nature. Rethinking tax searches for digital age. You can actually use this for privacy. Basically, there was this case, Vishwa Prasad Alva versus Union of India, in which the Supreme Court raised a question saying that the lawful reach of sovereign power, into the informational life of citizens. The Supreme Court asked that whether the lawful reach of sovereign power can go into the information life of citizens. Actually, the reason why this came is because there's a section I think section 132 section 132. There's a section 132 in the Income Tax Act, which says that the tax officers can search anything or any personal information if they suspect tax evasion. Now, what you need to understand is this aspect, the section 132 aspect was present before the digital era. Meaning before the digital era, searching of personal information meant searching of lockers or cupboards, like, or houses. All of these aspects came under before digital era. Now, as the digital era came, meaning that there's cloud storage, there is presence of laptops, presence of phones, right? All of these are present now. So all the information or all the money that is being stored is in a digital form. So now this search is what the search according to the section 132, can it be included, or can that be included in the digital era as well? That is what the court is asking. Can section 132, which was brought in before the digital era, be used in currently where the digital era is present, meaning that searching of laptops, searching of cloud storage, all of these aspects? Well, in order to avoid reduce the tax evasion, tax officers can do it. But then again, what you need to understand is there is this case called case Puttaswamy case. Case Puttaswamy case, which dealt with right to privacy. Right to privacy under Article 21. It says that you have each and every individual has the right to privacy, and whenever the section 132 comes into play, and the tax officers are allowed to use phones, laptops, or cloud storage to search whether the tax evasion is happening or not. It is not only searching for tax, not only searching for tax evasion, but it is also intruding into the information life of the citizens, meaning that you have medical history, you have personal information, personal chats. They can use the what do you call term tax evasion in order to intrude into your personal life. So that is what the court was asking. The court was asking, can the sovereign power of the tax officers be into the information life of the citizens, right? Well, there's a case called Purnamal case, in which the court upheld Purnamal case. Purnamal versus direct tax inspector, right? In which the court upheld the powers of section 132 under Income Tax Act. But this case again was before the digital era. This case was before the digital era, meaning that this the particular aspect under section 132 is still up for debate. Now the government says that whenever the section 132 is applied for the digital products, people are saying that you need to give an advance notice. But the government is saying if you give an advance notice, people might erase the data. What happens if you erase the data? Then the tax evasion actually is being done, and people actually will be using the loophole. So that is why even the government is saying that we cannot give an advance notice. We need to invade into the personal space in order to see whether the tax evasion is happening or not. This again is a very big tussle between the sovereign power and individual rights, right? There's a tussle between the sovereign power and individual rights. What the court might do is it might prescribe a time limit for the amount of search that they can do, meaning that if a person's digital records are being searched for tax evasion, they can only do it for a 30-day period, meaning that in the previous 30 days or previous 60 days, if the tax evasion has happened, then that person might be penalized like that, rather than taking the whole history of the digital records, meaning that you cannot take 1 year's history or 3 years history or 10 years history. You cannot go into the personal chats, right? Keeping all of these restrictions would lead to a restriction of the state on the fundamental rights. So that is what I wanted to tell you regarding this article. In this article, you can use it for right to privacy. Right to privacy under Article 21, or you can use it for how the state controls fundamental rights. These are the two aspects in which you can actually focus on. Other than that, I don't think there's any other article that is very important. Everything is political in nature. nothing is more relevant to UPSC because currently it's all about politics and geopolitical tensions. I've explained all the geopolitical tension aspects and also the important aspects in see, stock slips, oil, gold rise on war. You see that whenever there's a geopolitical tension around the world, it impacts India directly. Yeah. So that is about today's newspaper analysis. Hope you understood all of the important articles that are present in India and uh, how to study the articles that are present in the newspaper for UPSC. Do not study every aspect, because if you keep studying every aspect, you'll amount nearly 2-3 hours for the newspaper, which will take a lot of time. So reduce the time, work smart, not hard. Okay. Thank you, guys.